The fight between the Congress and the BJP has only become bigger. It has intensified. The evening was filled with rumors that there could be arrests in the National Herald case of the Gandhis. But what really is the story? We're breaking it down for you this evening. Let me start with the top headlines. Enforcement Directorate seals young Indian office in Congress-owned Herald House in Delhi. Security heightened outside Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi's residences. Congress says it's an attempt to insult and intimidate. 17 opposition parties expressed concerns over the Supreme Court's judgment upholding Enforcement Directorate's powers, call it dangerous. Delhi reports its fourth monkeypox case as a 31-year-old woman hailing from Nigeria and residing in the national capital tests positive. India's tally now stands at 9. Top court seeks suggestions on whether an expert body should look into freebies before polls. Seeks suggestions within 7 days. Center in the top court says freebies have an adverse impact on voters. Nancy Pelosi concludes her controversial Taiwan visit, leaves China fuming. China punishes Taiwan, announces retaliatory military drills and suspends exports. Big boost to cricket after it was added to a shortlist of 9 sports that will be reviewed by the International Olympic Committee for addition to the 2028 Los Angeles Games. You're watching Beyond the Headline. I'm Tamanna Inamdar. The political fight between the Congress and the BJP just got even more personal today. Now, here's what happened. The Enforcement Directorate that is investigating charges of money laundering in the National Herald case landed up at the Young Indian office earlier this evening. Soon, news emerged that the Young Indian office has been sealed. Let's get those pictures up on the screen. You're seeing all of the action here. So the Young Indian office was sealed earlier in the day. At the same time, the Delhi police deployed personnel outside the homes of Sonia Gandhi, Congress president, and the road to the AICC headquarters were barricaded. Amongst the rumors of a possible arrest of the Gandhis came source-based clarifications from the Enforcement Directorate that the Young Indian office has been sealed because the office bearer, that is Congress leader Mallikarjun Kharge, was unavailable to conduct a search. The Congress, meanwhile, went into a huddle. Its top leaders, including Jairam Ramesh, Pawan Bansal, P. Chidambaram and Salman Khurshid, met to strategize on what happens next. On social media, its leaders put out cryptic messages talking about how they were ready for war. A short while later, the party held a press conference in which they claimed the nation was in an undeclared emergency. All of this is, of course, pertaining to the National Herald case. A quick recap of the case. The charge is that a company called Young Indians, whose offices were sealed today, bought the assets of Associated Journals Limited that owns the National Herald for just 50 lakh rupees. In lieu, they got control of AJL, that's Associated Journals, that owed the Congress party 90 crore rupees. AJL, through National Herald, is alleged to have controlled properties worth 2,000 rupees. Put simply, the charge is that Young Indians, essentially owned by Sonia and Rahul Gandhi, got hold of National Herald and its assets for a fraction of the cost. Now, let's take a look at the Young Indian board. On the board, Sonia Gandhi has 38% stake. Rahul Gandhi has 38% stake. Motilal Vora, who's deceased, has 12% stake, and Oscar Fernandez has 12% stake. Both are, of course, no more. Other key figures in the company are Mallikarjun Kharge, who is the CEO of Young Indian Limited, and Pawan Bansal, who is the MD of the Associated Journals. Now, the Enforcement Directorate has already questioned both Sonia and Rahul Gandhi for a cumulative of 62 hours over several days. The Congress grouse is that all of this is just a way to silence them because they're raising the voice of the common people. The BJP, of course, says it's only process. But you know what the real story is? It's the powers of the Enforcement Directorate. We mentioned earlier that 17 parties and opposition parties have opposed these, and their powers have recently been upheld by the Supreme Court. What we are seeing is the ED in action, using those powers to their fullest capacity over the last few days. Do these actions actually have a chilling effect on opposition parties like they claim, or is this just a part of their narrative? To speak on this, I'm joined today by Rajiv Pandey, spokesperson of the BJP, and Tehseen Poonawala, political analyst. I'm also speaking with Yashovardhan Azad, former IPS officer. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for joining us on Beyond the Headline. Mr. Pandey, let me begin with asking you that it's not just the Congress. Opposition parties say that the ED is being used to intimidate them. The National Herald case is being used to silence the voice of the opposition that is talking about mehengai, is talking about the problems of the people. What is your response to those claims?
Tamanna ji, let's not divert the issue with mehengai and other things. On mehengai, Parliament, government has replied, and let the people judge on other issues, whether it is inflation or unemployment and everything. Can you hear me?
Very clearly, not very clearly.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, that's better. That's better. Should I repeat my question? Because you've talked about diverting the issue. I'm asking your response to a specific charge made by Congress leaders in a press conference at 7 p.m. this evening, where they've said that you were afraid of their procession and of their protests which were going to be taking place. That's why you've instigated all of these and orchestrated all of these ED raids so that the headline changes. Tonight I'm talking about the ED raids. That's what they're saying you wanted.
Tamanna ji, people of this country are more intelligent than you, me, Tehseen and sir. So let's not go into that. People are well aware about everything. You don't worry for that. After 1991, after liberalization, telecommunication, people are aware about everything, every word. What I'm trying to say about the inflation and unemployment, Parliament has discussed all these issues. And government is working for that. People are aware. The moment governments and agencies take action against the corrupt people, these people come and say, don't take action against me. The larger issue is, in this case, the ED has taken action, and before that, Sonia Gandhi ji went up to Supreme Court to stop the FIR. And Honorable Supreme Court of India refused. All the top guns of Congress party, from Abhishek Manu Singhvi ji to Kapil Sibal, argued this case before Honorable Supreme Court of India when Subramaniam Swamy ji started.
So what is the point you're making, Mr. Pandey? What is the point that you're making?
My point is very simple. Due process of law has...
Okay, so it's process of law. Okay, Tehseen, it's process of law. What is the big hullabaloo about? I mean, this evening they were like, oh, they're going to arrest Mrs. Gandhi, they're going to arrest Rahul Gandhi, they're blocking the AICC. So the ED claims, and ED sources claim that they went to a young Indian. They need the office bearer there. The office bearer was not there. No one's in the office, so they sealed it and came back. All of that Delhi police deployment was because the Congress party, workers were protesting. Why such a hullabaloo about it? Tehseen.
Namaskar, Tamanna ji. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Namaskar to my fellow panelists and to all your viewers. And I certainly do believe that you are definitely more intelligent than me. Therefore, you are the host of a very important show that the country watches and gains a lot of knowledge from you. So first, my tributes to that. And Rajiv ji is a very erudite spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party. But Tamanna, through you, let me just put out two things before the viewers, before I answer some specific things. This attack today on National Herald and Herald House is deliberate. Tamanna ji, National Herald newspaper played a very important role in the freedom of India. We're celebrating 75 years of our freedom. And it is one institution that even Subhash Chandra Bose said that was a newspaper that was extremely fair to him despite his differences, some differences with Jawaharlal Nehru. So this attack on Herald House by RSS and the Enforcement Directorate investigating agency, which has now become a recruitment agency for the BJP, is deliberate to do to the Congress what the British has done to the Congress all this time.
You know, Tehseen, 1 minute. But you started your response with flattery. And thank you for that, but you know that flattery will get you nowhere. I asked you, I'm asking you, you went into RSS and National Herald ka history, but that's not the case. They are talking about young Indian office was sealed. They said they want to go search it. There was nobody there, so they sealed it. Why has this suddenly been positioned as an attack on the opposition?
I got it. You know, when I'm speaking, someone's speaking in the background about the camera. So please, I can't hear, but
we'll try and fix that.
Repeat. Yeah, I'm just repeating it. It's a deliberate attempt by the Enforcement Directorate and the RSS to put National Herald down because it contributed in the freedom movement. Number one. So this is deliberate at 75 years of independence. Number one. Number two, the most pertinent point about the Enforcement Directorate, which is now a recruitment agency for the Bharatiya Janata Party. Let's only talk data. At the time when Sri Manmohan Singh Ji was Prime Minister, there were 112 raids conducted by the Enforcement Directorate, 104 charge sheets. Since Mr. Modi has become Prime Minister, 2974 raids conducted by the Enforcement Directorates, figures given by the BJP. Out of these, this is the most pertinent point, 905 raids are done on the opposition or people associated with the opposition, only 11 done on people associated with the BJP. This, despite the fact the courts have come down and said...
Time span are you talking about, Tehseen? What time span is this data from?
2004 to 2014,
okay.
2004 to 2014, 112, 2014 to 2022, 2974. Now the new raids have been added. Out of this, 905 on opposition while Mr. Modi is Prime Minister, only 11 on BJP. Now, very important, who are these 11 people of the BJP raided? Some Jaiswalji, some Mishraji. Those raided in the Congress and the other opposition are top leaders. This, despite court saying, for example, in Vyapam, ED investigation, how many raids on Shivraj Singh Chauhan? 0. When the BJP said Himanta Biswa Sharma is extremely corrupt, removed a white paper on him, how many ED raids on Himanta Biswa Sharma? 0. He's the chief minister. This is the bias of the Enforcement Directorate. Number two, again, quoting from data from Parliament, the conviction rate of the Enforcement Directorate is 0.5% under Mr. Modi. They've got 23 convictions, 22 out of these were charge sheets filed by the UPA. So under Mr. Modi, the conviction is 0.
Let me get a response.
One minute. Just one line.
One minute. We'll have to break it up, Tehseen. You will get a chance to speak. You don't have to say everything in one go. Rajiv Pandey, he is saying, and the Congress says, that you are, it's clear that ED is being used as a political tool. Let's not pretend.
Tamanna ji,
he's saying that why all of the raids only on opposition leaders? Why are 17 opposition leaders today worried about the ED's powers being backed by the Supreme Court?
Tamanna ji, just let me tell you one aspect. In every debate, people come with the data that only 0.5% is the conviction rate. They don't talk about the acquittal rate. The cases are in progress. Or there are 2 ministers in Maharashtra is in jail and charge sheet is filed. There is no acquittal. What is the acquittal rate? Tell me.
Now, how is that relevant to the point? Acquittal rate is a poor reflection on ED. What is that? Process is the punishment. Mr. Pandey, you know that very well.
No.
And this is from time immemorial. Not only in, the NDA. Process is the punishment. Your response is acquittal.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, sir.
Tamanna ji, what I am trying to say, right now, in these kind of cases, there are complex issues are involved. What I'm saying, if tomorrow, these people who are raided and charge-sheeted, if they are not, they get acquittal, I can understand Tehseen Poonawala's point. He is himself saying that even the BJP people are also raided. What I'm trying to say, just wait for some time. You have gone up to Supreme Court. Rahul ji and Sonia ji has gone up to Supreme Court. They could not get any relief.
Sir, you've said 3 different things in one sentence, Mr. Pandey. Aap simply bole. So our viewers can understand. Let me repeat the question very simply. Why are an overwhelming majority of ED investigations only targeted at the opposition? It has nothing to do with the acquittal rate. Acquittal to baad mein aayega ki nahi aayega, that's a different story. Why is the process and why is the investigation against overwhelmingly opposition leaders? Are you saying all opposition leaders are corrupt and people in your party are all pure driven snow?
Tamanna ji, you are asking question, I'll tell you.
Yes.
Because the ED takes action against only the corrupt people who are involved in money laundering cases.
Okay.
First, who deals with the proceeds of crime. That is first. What I'm trying to say, in West Bengal, there is a opposition party government. In Odisha, there is a opposition party government. 2.5 years, there was a Congress government in Maharashtra. 5 years, Devendra Fadnavis-led government was there. Why they have not taken action against them if they have involved in the corruption cases and the Prevention of Corruption Act? Who has stopped them? I am telling you only one thing. BJP under the leadership of Narendra Bhai Modi, every money launderer will be questioned investigated,
Okay.
and whatever has to happen, it will happen.
Whatever
You
has
will
to
allow
happen,
me
it
to
will
complete.
happen.
No,
He's saying it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The ED is going after opposition leaders because they go only after the corrupt, and hence this proves that they are corrupt. But then let me bring you back to your point about acquittal rates. The acquittal rates are very low. Okay, Yashovardhan Azad. This is going round in circles. Let me come to Yashovardhan Azad. 1 minute. Now wait your turn, sir. Let Mr. Azad also speak. I have invited a very senior expert who actually knows the subject in and out. Just listen to him for 2 minutes, Mr. Pandey.
Can you give me 30 seconds? Only 30 seconds. 30 seconds, madam.
Okay.
Madam, only I'm saying, everybody talks about the conviction rate. The issue is in our judicial system, every case takes time. What I'm trying to say, if you discuss about the acquittal rate, you can better understand what is happening. These Lalu Prasad Yadav, it took 20 years to convict him in Chara Ghotala case.
I am desperately trying to understand the point you are making, and I will come back to you on it. But first, let me come to Mr. Azad, who has been quietly listening to you and Tehseen. I think, we should respect his point of view. We should listen to him. I've invited him so that people can understand what the issue is all about. Mr. Azad, so a few important things have happened in the last, I would say, 3 months. If I, pull back a little and look at the story in a broader view, because today it's about National Herald and Sonia Gandhi and her residence and how was the police there, etc., etc. But the slew of action taken by the Enforcement Directorate, how it overwhelmingly, on the face of it at least, seems to be that there are opposition leaders on the other side of it, on the receiving end. And then what the Supreme Court has said about the powers that some see as extraordinary, which have been given to the Enforcement Directorate. Is there right now a way to ensure that these powers are not misused and that what the opposition is claiming is perhaps not true?
Well, I was thoroughly enjoying the political debate till you sort of butted in and asked me to give my views, but I'll certainly take more than 2 minutes. First of all, I agree, it's a fact that mostly the cases which are being taken up are against the opposition. It is also a fact that in some cases there are prima facie evidence. If you find 50 crores lying around, obviously there's a predicate offense right there, right in front of your face. It is also a fact that in some cases it can be questioned. It is also a fact that in the case of National Herald, this has been going on for 11 years and it's so messed up. It's a very, very messy investigation. There is no doubt about it because everything is record. Properties have been attached. Statements have been held. You can't have a self-incriminatory statement from any of the so-called accused. And therefore, I would say that there are points both sides. There's no doubt. I mean, to a large extent, what Mr. Pandey said and to what Mr. Tehseen Poonawala said, I've been with him on many debates, are correct in their own way. But the question here is that in a democracy, can you allow 11 years of investigation for anything? Forget Mr. Rahul Gandhi or anyone, for example. It just cannot go on. So I'm not blaming anybody here, except that I'm saying that the leadership of whether it is the ED or the CBI should take a call on this. You can't go on and on and on. That's point number one. As far as you're talking about the personal liberties and the opposition parties going all together for a review of the Supreme Court judgment, I think they have a right. They have a right because it is true that ED has been given carte blanche powers. And once, of course, the country believes in their integrity, in their impartiality, then there is no problem. But there is a problem here because the feeling is, and statistically it is right, that mostly all the cases are being taken against the opposition parties. If the cases are also undertaken against those, Narda scam, for example, and there are clear examples, also again, those people who have come into the BJP, and then the proceedings are held and people get to know, then of course, ED would be given an absolutely clap from the people itself. Now, for the common people, I would say, any act against the corruption is welcome. For example, just because no action is being taken against the ruling party does not mean that you cannot take action against the opposition where prima facie evidence is there. And therefore, this argument fails. So in the end, I would only say that the ED and the CBI, there has to be a self-correction course. It has to be impartial. It has to be balanced. And yes, investigations take a very long time. But the end, when we are talking about conviction rate, let us be very clear. Conviction rate is out of the total number of judgments delivered. If 100 judgments have been delivered, out of that, then you calculate conviction rate. It's not from the totality.
Yeah, okay, so thank you for clarifying that. Some important points there, Mr.
I am grateful to you, Azad sir. I am grateful to you because Tamanna ji had come to the show with preconceived notion. So she is unable to understand.
That's not fair. That's not fair, Mr. Pandey. If I had, no, you are listening to this view on the show. Mr. Pandey, you are listening to this show. You are listening to this view on the show, are you not? Where you are getting complete opportunity to put your point of view. That's not fair. Go ahead, sir.
He has clarified my point.
Tamanna, even I'm on the show. I have to report. Even I'm on the show, Tamanna.
You may have preconceived notions, but I am being attacked by the BJP spokesperson. I'm not sure why. Anyway, Mr. Pandey, please continue with your point.
Can you please give me my say?
Only one line. Can I say, sir, one line? Tehseen bhai, only one line. What I am trying to say, I completely agree whatever Azad Sahab has said, that there should be a limitation point. You cannot keep on doing. On that point, I am agree with him. He has also stated that acquittal rate comes when the cases are decided, not because of the progress. That's why I'm time and again saying, a corrupt person like Lalu Prasad, Congress allies, in 5 cases he is convicted. It took 20, 25 years. So don't blame BJP. What I'm trying to say, in any government where the opposition party is ruling, why Congress party is not taking action against the corrupt people from BJP, if at all, in Rajasthan, under Prevention of Corruption Act? Why they are not taking action? I am saying, I am a practicing lawyer, I am saying all political parties who are in power should take action against the corrupt. If my party people are corrupt, let them be prosecuted by where the Congress party is in power.
So opposition doesn't have ED, but you have state police. Opposition doesn't have ED, you have state police. But should any law enforcement agency be used politically then, is my question. Yes, Tehseen, your response. I want you to respond to a specific point that Mr. Azad made.
I want to.
Can I clarify what point I want you to respond to initially? Is where he says, no, take your time, but just let me put set the context of what I want you to respond to. He says that just because there are fewer cases being investigated right now by the Enforcement Directorate against leaders of the ruling party does not mean that there should be as few cases of investigations against the opposition parties. It's not like a tit for tat. They are doing their job. So because they're investigating fewer BJP leaders doesn't mean they should be investigating fewer opposition leaders. I want you to start by responding to that point.
No, I'll respond to that second, but I just want to clarify one thing Azad sir said, because I have so much respect for him. And thank you, sir, for graciously accepting my point on the data on the opposition versus the government supporters, the raids, which is 905 to 111. Sir, just for your correct clarification and for clarification on national TV, the conviction rate of Enforcement Directorate is 0.5% as put out by the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs in the Parliament. Out of the 5,422 cases where charge sheets were filed, these are charge sheets filed by the Enforcement Directorate, sir. These have already been filed in the court of law. They've secured 23 convictions. 22 out of these were from the cases during UPA era, out of which 104 charge sheets were filed. So, sir, when we look at it in that, say, 5,322 was filed by the ED under the present government, and this 0.5% is not a figure given to me. It's a figure presented in the Parliament of India. That's point number one. Point number two, sir, this is the more pertinent point, and I'll come to what Tamanna said. I completely agree with sir that if the opposition is corrupt, you should go after him. But in Vyapam, it is the Honorable Supreme Court that said there should be an investigation in ED. Why is there no investigation on Shivraj Singh Chauhan? On Hemanta Biswa Sharma, BJP said he's a corrupt man. They removed a white paper. They asked for an ED investigation. Once he joined BJP, nothing happened. So with Mr. Adhikari. But let's leave that. Sir, Mr. Azad will agree. You cannot compare one case to another. So I will not get into what happened in West Bengal, what happened in Madhya Pradesh, what happened in Maharashtra. Let's talk facts on National Herald because that's what we are here to debate.
I made that
case,
point.
Let him
I made
respond.
that point.
Let him respond.
Yes, sir. And with respect to you,
Let him
so much
respond.
respect.
Yes,
I just
yes.
wanted to tell Tehseen that I made that point.
Yes,
That
sir.
it is absolutely not balanced at all. In the case of Nada scam and so many others, the prosecution has not been done. And therefore,
Yes,
another
sir.
point, Tehseen, I just wanted to make was,
Yes, sir.
filing a charge sheet is not enough. Because after that, the process of the court takes a long time. So out of the judgments delivered in the number of cases, conviction then only can be calculated. That's what
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But sir, in the recent Supreme Court, sir, but in the recent Supreme Court judgment, the Honorable Supreme Court, and I don't agree with that judgment, and I bow before the Honorable Supreme Court because Article 23 has been overturned and the burden of guilt has been put on yourself,
Yes.
which you yourself said. But sir, in that same judgment, the Honorable Supreme Court says that the government is deliberately not filling up vacancies in the various judicial positions
No,
for
but
the enforcement directorate.
tangent there. The point that was being clarified is that the denominator in this equation of convictions will be the
yes,
cases
I
in
get
court,
it.
not
Tamanna,
the charge
just hear me
sheets
out.
filed.
I get that. Tamanna, I get that.
Yeah.
But you know what? You please understand the thing in totality. What the government is doing, and this is what the Supreme Court has said, is that judicial officers are not being filled up, are not allowed to be filled up, so that the case continues and the process and the punishment continues. Please understand what the government is doing.
So that's the point about process as punishment. Mr. Pandey, you must answer the question that Mr. Azad pointed.
Now let me come to a very pertinent point on National Herald because that's what we are being discussed.
No, I'll come back to National Herald, but I don't want to lose my train of thought. Tehseen, hang on.
I keep diverting and I can't...
No, because I want to just complete this circuit.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
for the purpose of comprehension, because Mr. Pandey thinks I have come with preconceived notions, you please respond to what Mr. Azad has said. He asked the question on Vyapam. He asked the question about charges which were made against Mr. Sarma, the Chief Minister of Assam, before he switched to your party. Now, when you have come and said that the opposition leaders are being questioned by the Enforcement Directorate because they're the corrupt ones, then these are some of the glaring examples of how the investigation seems to go very slow or kind of disappears once that particular political figure changes allegiance. How would you respond to that and justify that, Mr. Pandey?
I'll respond. Tamanna ji, first, Tehseen Poonawala ji has taken 3 times Vyapam. Vyapam scam started under the leadership of Mr. Digvijay Singh, and several Congress people are convicted. If he wants, I can give him the list that how many Congresses are convicted in that case. Let's not go into that debate. That is one. Second, he talked about Assam Chief Minister, Hemant Biswara. I wish to state one Rabat who has captured the land of so many people in Rajasthan and all. Even the FIR are filed against them. Investigation are going on. Investigation is going on for long. But if there is no evidence, concrete evidence to the ED or the CBI or the police officials, even Robert Vadra, after capturing so many lands, still he is not arrested. So let ED. I have full faith in the judiciary as well as the law enforcement agencies. I only agree with one point. It cannot be for 10 years, 15 years. But what I'm saying, Robert Vadra is also not arrested. Why Tehseen Poonawala is not saying, though he has...
All right. So baat ki ek baat. Actually, so baat ki ek baat. You know,
there is no evidence.
no, simple thing. Do you, Mr. Pandey, believe that the Enforcement Directorate, that the state police, because you said that opposition leaders should ask their state police to target the BJP if they want. Do you believe that all of these functionaries today can do their work without political interference? Because really, at the end of the day, my responsibility is to my viewer. This is the question they're asking. That if the person in power, can they decide how these investigative agencies function? That's the real question. Do you believe all of these agencies are independent today, Mr. Pandey?
In my opinion, in last 75 years, this is the best time for agencies who are given free hand to take action against the corrupt. Otherwise, can you tell me that 2 cabinet ministers in Maharashtra in jail, 1 cabinet minister is in jail from Delhi, another cabinet minister 50 crores from 1 Mahila Mitra. There are so many Mahila Mitra.
So in the last 8 years, they have become independent. Okay, Tehseen, I want you to respond to that and make the point you were making about National Herald. But remember, the bottom line, the question that people want to ask is, are these investigative agencies actually acting as they're supposed to, or is someone pulling the strings? And that keeps changing depending on who's in power. Yes, Tehseen.
I just want to make intellectual points because I really hold this show in high esteem, and Azad sir is here. You know, in 1998, General Assembly, United Nations General Assembly decided we need an agency for money laundering to do with terrorism and drugs. Those were broadly the objectives of ED. When 2002 it was when it came into being. 2005 though it was notified, and then there were some amendments. 2009. Your viewers will be shocked, and Tamanna, you will be shocked. In 2018, the list of scheduled offences were increased under Enforcement Directorate as a finance bill. It didn't go to the Rajya Sabha. You will be shocked to hear this. Number one. Number two, now of course that is being challenged in a constitutional bench. I'm one of the petitioners. Number two, your viewers will also be shocked that this present Enforcement Director, an IRS officer, the Honorable Supreme Court, in a written judgment, not in an observation, in a written judgment, said his tenure will not be extended. The Honorable Vice President and Chairperson of Rajya Sabha suspended 12 MPs of the opposition and extended the Enforcement Director's tenure. This shows you how important and how independent this agency is. Now, for the third point, since Rajiv ji is a very, very, very learned lawyer, I want to request him today, please tell me what are the scheduled offences in ED under Mrs. Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi, and why is there no FIR if there was a scheduled offence? The ECIR, please, 1 second, hold on, sir, hold on. The ECIR of 2012 was shut in 2015. Says not me, says Subramaniam Swamy. I have a copy of that. That ECIR shut is an internal document. They shut it. So on what basis did they restart it? Please don't quote the court judgments, because that was an income tax issue. Please come to the criminality of the scheduled offences. Now don't come with 420 because that by itself is not a scheduled offence. Come to the criminality in ED.
How will he know? How will he know? As per the Supreme Court, the ED doesn't have to tell anyone.
So you can have so people can be put under jail. People can be put under jail and they don't know what sections it is. And so anyone
that's what the Supreme Court order says.
Sir, if you want, I can tell you the section.
But you are supposed to give the person who you've arrested or you have a charge against what charges you.
Okay, 1 minute. Quick response from Rajiv Pandey, because then I want to wrap the show very quickly with the last word from Mr. Azad. Yes, Mr. Pandey, quickly.
Sir, right now, Sonia ji and Rahul ji is not arrested. Right now, it is at the investigation stage. And under Section 3, offence of money laundering, there are 6-7 things. And there is a FIR against them. There is a charge sheet against them. Right now, let the investigation be complete. What? No. In that case, they are on bail. Not ED charge sheet, I am talking, sir.
So I can guarantee there is no charge sheet.
The bottom line, 1 minute. Mr. Azad, the bottom line, this is not a court of law. This will have to go to the appropriate court when we have to look at, and we'll come to the process of on what basis the ED is undertaking this investigation, what they've essentially found, and what happened in the National Herald case. We put out the details of the case for our viewers in the beginning of the show. But the bottom line, Mr. Azad, is that do people in this country believe, do you believe that all of these agencies, state and centre, ED, the state police, etc., are they acting at the behest of whoever is in power? Or are they doing their job honestly and independently?
Well, that's a very critical part of the debate we've had today, and you've raised this before, and I wanted to react to this also. The last point I just wanted to make on the AJL cases, you see, the critical issue in the ED case is that if you're talking about money laundering, did the money move from anywhere to anywhere? So I think that is something which the court will say, that, you know, there is a predicate offense, presumably because of misappropriation or whatever that you're trying to put. But did the money move anywhere to call it Shelley money laundering? Now, as far as the second part is concerned, it is a very, very critical issue, and that is the choice of police leadership or the institutional leadership. In the case of ED, as Mr. Poonawala has already stated, I mean, I don't see the reason why one chief should be there at a particular place for more than a tenure of 2 years or 3 years. But even in the SPG, there are 7 years of tenure already in one case. And in the Congress regime, it was of 10 years. So the question is, you're absolutely right. As far as the institutional controls is held by the powers that be, you know, even the Chief Justice had said that the police, to establish credibility, or any institution like this to establish credibility, it has to has its distance from the political executive, which is there. If you go to the London Metropolitan Authority, for example, even in the case of a probe in the Prime Minister's case, which the dance or whatever had taken place in his office, And they said, we are not influenced by anybody, not even Prime Minister's office. So that is the kind of credibility, if you're looking for, certainly that is not there with the ED or with the CBI, whether in this regime or any other regime. And there has to be a lot of effort between the opposition and the ruling party to come to that stage.
So that might not be the fiery political, pot shot or shouting that viewers may be used to seeing on other channels. But frankly, that's the question, isn't it? As people of this country, as citizens of this country, forget about X party, Y leader. We want to know that our investigative agencies are playing by the book, are actually doing their job.
Can you give me 30 seconds?
And that's the best question. I'm so sorry, but I have to wrap up. I'm way over time. But thank you, Mr. Pandey, for joining us, Tehseen, as well as Mr. Azad. Let me